The Pro Wrestler's Handbook. It's a title I came up with years ago when I was contemplating. People always, not a lot of people, but some people said I should write a book. Certainly that's where my educational background lies. And I was involved in pro wrestling for quite some time, very heavily. So I recently stumbled upon all the notes that I had for the lectures that I would give the wrestlers, when I would talk to and train other promoters, people who wrote wrestling, bookers. I make a distinction between the two, but that's not important right now. Anyway, I thought, since I'm kind of rejuvenated and I've been very much into talking about wrestling, if not watching wrestling, that I would put out a lecture that my students, wrestling students, trainees, were all too familiar with, which is the 3 roles of wrestlers in different parts of the card and the 2 jobs that they each had. Is this very simple? Of course it is. It's meant to be that way. There are many nuances and there are many subtleties, and this video is going to capture some of that, but not all of that. The article that's accompanying this video, that you can find on the GWH news and notes.blogspot.com, along with the link to this video, is kind of a simple pared down thing. It basically explains what the 3 roles are and their 2 jobs in very simple terms. So what are the 3? I'm going to call it new wrestler, mid-card wrestler, main event wrestler. Of course, there's a million terms you can juxtapose with any of those, right? But in essence, the new wrestler, I'm not just going to read what's in the article, but I'm going to sum it up very quickly so I can sort of expound on things more. New wrestlers are either people who are literally new, or if it's a new gimmick for a wrestler, or if you are a new wrestler to a particular promotion. You have 2 jobs, and the 2 jobs can simply be described as get your gimmick over and then show that you can work. That's it. Your job is to not steal the show when you're a new wrestler. Of course, there's exceptions, but what if you're booked in this way? And remember that time where Paige debuted and, she beat the champ right away and blah, 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 blah. I'm talking in sort of the simplest terms, and I'm especially speaking to wrestlers that are starting to work for different promotions. Your job is to go in there, and everybody should clearly understand, and by everybody I mean the other wrestlers, I mean the bookers, I mean the promoters, and I mean most importantly the audience should get a sense of who you are in your first match, right? What's your style? Are you a face or a heel? What's your gimmick? What's your motivation for things? That should all come across in your first few matches with a new promotion. Or if you're a new wrestler, it's especially important to show that you can work, you can do fundamentals, that you're going to sell, that you're going to be able to cleanly execute moves, that you can run the ropes, that the things that you're asked to do and that you do, you're comfortable doing, and that other people can feel comfortable for you doing it to them. The safety factor is essential. A lot of guys in the modern take on wrestling think they have to break new people in and do all this kind of nonsense. It's really not necessary. And with the way that most shows are structured nowadays, it's not even desirable. You're going to have a lot of people coming into promotions, a lot of people that don't work out. Not everybody's going to work out. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to arm the new wrestler with tools. And the number one thing you can do is show that you can work. And then the second thing that you can do is to get your gimmick over. Even in defeat, a lot of promotions book guys to lose the second they get there. Irrelevant. Fine. Take the loss. But get yourself over. That doesn't mean you have to get your shit in, right? And get every move under the book. In fact, less is definitely more. A well-executed, it's amazing. I remember, here's a specific example. Tommy, I'm not sure what last name he's using now, Pinarelli. I remember him just doing an up and over in the corner. Somebody whipped him in, followed, he did an up and over. But he did it so cleanly and so effectively that it actually got mentioned in Larry's report, and it actually won the boys over. Just being able to execute a simple wrestling thing like an up and over, but do it incredibly well, was enough to really establish him at Platinum Championship Wrestling. He didn't have to go out there and now have guys come in, especially if they come in and they're going to wrestle their friend and they do everything under the book and they're like, yeah, we did this great match, and they have all these false finishes. That's not your job. When you're a new wrestler, your job is to get your gimmick over, because then you start opening the mind of the booker to possibilities. You start opening the fan's mind to the possibilities of, I think I want to see this guy again. This guy's got gimmick A. I want to see what it looks like if it goes against this other wrestler that has a different gimmick, right? The squash matches of wrestling's past perfectly exemplified this, right? Guys would come in, they would just destroy dudes, but they would get their gimmick over, and then they would show the fans and the other wrestlers what they were about. It's very effective. Now, even if you're not going to be involved in squash matches, or if you're going to be the guy that's getting beat all the time, it's even more imperative that you show that you can work and that you keep establishing your gimmick. But keep in mind, this is a double-edged sword. The gimmick you establish, be very careful about what that is. I'll give you an example of a guy who works in the Georgia area, Matt Sells. My personal opinion is he is doing himself a disservice by continually pointing out what a loser he is, continually keeping track and putting out in public what his record is. Oh, I'm 0-20-1 or whatever. If he doesn't want to be booked as a loser wrestler, and who the fuck wants to be booked as a wrestler that never wins, right? Then quit talking about it. There is no honor in having a really great match that surprises Larry Goodman, but you're always booked as a loser and you're never put in an angle worth a damn. It's something to think about. Next level, mid-card wrestlers. 2 jobs. Get embroiled in feud and angles, and steal the show when you can. What? Does that mean you should always try to steal the show? No, of course not. You should pick the most opportune moment. You should seize your moments. I would have said that as the job, seize your moments, but it's too vague. Steal the show is a term that everybody understands. Now, there are cards where almost everybody is expected to try to steal the show, and I love those cards, as long as they don't happen all the time. Duh, right? But every main event star had their moment in the mid-card where they stole a major card with their mid-card match. It's not hard to think of examples, right? Savage Steamboat from WrestleMania 3. Yeah. Macho Man Randy Savage, in defeat at WrestleMania 3, went on to become the world champion when that really meant something at WrestleMania 4. Yeah. Those things matter. They still matter. If you are in the mid-card of a promotion, when you have an opportunity to do something, you and the person that you're working with, opponents, partners, you should be working together to elevate everybody. Defeat, winning, only suckers can't get a thing over no matter what, right? It's your job to try to become the main event. It's your job to earn that spot. I said in the article briefly, I hate the you deserve it chant and the you deserve it mentality. There's this notion, and I think it holds wrestlers and promotions back, that the one who should be the main event is the one who's done their time and paid their dues, and the one that the booker has sort of predetermined. Haven't we seen in wrestling in the last 20 years that fans, if they sense that somebody is getting something just for the sake of getting it, Just because The Office likes them or The Office thinks they should be a star, they reject that out of hand. And I think there's a flip side to it. If you are an indie darling or somebody that the wrestling fans, the vocal minority, have decided deserves a thing, and they're the same schmucks who chant, "You deserve it," that is an albatross around your neck. The person who wins should be the person who gets everybody the most excited for their victory. The person who gets to the main event should be the person who everybody is the most excited about getting there. And that's a combination of booking, moving things along the way, but it's also somebody who really takes the moments when they're offered, the cliche of taking the ball and really running with it. But not just taking the ball and running with it, smashing everybody over the head with that ball and shoving it down their throat until they love them for it. Stone Cold became a star, a bona fide main event star in the 6 months where he was not wrestling. You know? It's telling. What was the mid-card match where he stole it and became and set the stage for him becoming a main event star? Everybody knows it, right? Blood from a Stone. WrestleMania 13, him and Bret Hart. He lost that match. But in losing, he elevated himself. Main event. Main event's easy. Create the hype and live up to the hype. I really shouldn't need to explain what that means. But if you look at the numerous examples in wrestling history, right? Let's look at one where they both created the hype and lived up to the hype. Hogan-Andre WrestleMania 3 is a great example. A lot of hype. And notice I picked a match that isn't a work rate match. Not by any stretch of the imagination. You had a 500-pound plus Andre the Giant who was barely mobile, could barely stay on his feet. And a Hulk Hogan who had to basically carry him through a match. But he did it. That match had all the hype. It's the reason that Pontiac Silverdome was full. Was to see that match. And only that match. That match was the hype. That match was the reason everybody was there. The undercard, of course, it was important, and of course it was great. But people bought tickets. People who weren't even wrestling fans knew about that show because of Hogan and Andre. Did that match live up to hype? You're damn right it did. Absolutely. Does it mean it was the greatest work rate match, that it was Okada and whoever? No. Doesn't matter. There was an expectation, and they met that expectation and perhaps exceeded it. That's your job as a main eventer. Nothing more, nothing less. Can booking put you in a position for that to happen? Most certainly. Can a promotion that really knows what they're doing and puts all the pieces in place help you out? Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's not just the work, and this is what I hate. I see it all the time. I see people in Georgia wrestling and wrestling in general. Yeah, but I do such a good job of promoting the shows, and look at all these videos I do. Yeah, but are they good? Do they get anybody to buy a ticket? Do they get anybody to put eyeballs on your shows or your other promotion for those shows? The answer is no, then it's a failure. And if you're the main event, your presence on the poster should be bigger. I was a big fan in the PCW posters and all the stuff that went out of promoting 1, perhaps 2 matches, and that's it. Because if it's the main event, that's the hype. I don't need to list every fucking asshole wrestler that's going to be on the card. To me, that's just for the boys. That's just so the boys can go, look, I'm on a poster. And I used to hear the boys bitch all the time about PCW posters. Why am I not on there? Because my job is to get people hyped for a show, not for you to get hyped for yourself. If you need to see yourself on a poster to feel like you're important, you got bigger problems than whether you are or not on a poster. Real quick, what's the job of the new wrestler? Get your gimmick across, show that you can work. Job of the mid-card wrestler, right? Get embroiled in angles and feuds, steal the show. 2 jobs as a main event wrestler: create the hype live up to the hype. Of course, it's a team effort. Of course, it's about bookers and promoters and everybody else and the people you're working with in the ring. But you, as an individual performer, those are your fucking jobs. Are these things open for discussion? Sure, I guess, to an extent. But instead of people looking for things to pick apart in these things, you'll probably be much better served sort of thinking of how you can embody them, thinking of how you can improve upon them, and being realistic about which one of the three that you are. Until you do that, you're just a selfish dickhead, and you're not making wrestling cards better by being on them. You're actually burdening the show. At the end of the day, it's all about the show. And the more people that pull their weight and do their roles correctly, there should be a little bit of agitation in the mid-card to the upper mid-card, right? Those are the people that should be striving for the top. That's much more interesting than everybody who just works in lockstep and it's a perfectly harmonious locker room. Yes, you want a harmonious locker room. Yes, you want where everybody's pulling in the same direction. I think we have that at PCW, sure. But at the end of the day, if you are a wrestler that thinks of yourself as a main event wrestler that hasn't gotten there yet, you should want to get there. The mid-card should want to be in the main event. And when they get there, they should know it's because they deserve to be there. Truly deserve it, not just because they've put in the time and they're getting the equivalent of a gold watch. They've put in enough time and they've done enough. So here you are. I guess you're the main event now. Make people excited to see you. Make you excited to see yourself do something. Challenge yourself. Follow those rules, push hard, and try to get there. This has been the first edition of the Pro Wrestler's Handbook.